We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's show, we have our special guest talking Trump, Biden, Doge, Con Air, Ukraine, and everything in between. It's going to be quite the show. Please remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. And welcome to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio American Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. Very fortunate to have with us today Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent, Graham J. Noble, to talk the overview of what's happening in the political world in the United States today. Graham, thanks for being here.
Pleasure, Mark.
So, Graham, it seems that we've had a couple of weeks of threatened investigations, potential charges. We've had ups and downs. We've had roundabouts. And pretty much we've had trade wars. We've had electricity emergencies. It's been a hectic couple of weeks. What's the calm view going forward, Graham?
Well, that's a good question, Mark. I'm not even sure if there is a calm view going forward.
Well, that's a good answer.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that it surprises me a little bit. I think it surprises a lot of people that the Democrats, after the kind of drubbing they took in the 2024 election, that they would maybe have, kind of calmed down a little bit, taken a step back, maybe chill out a bit, maybe rethink the orange man bad strategy. But they obviously have actually doubled down on the whole thing. And I would say that even if you compare this to Trump's first term, that the Democrats are actually more hysterically anti-Trump than they were back then.
Well, you know why, Graham, don't you? It's because if we're to believe them at their words, that there'll never be another election. I mean, that's what we were told, right? All the way up until November. There'll never be another election. If he wins this, that's it. There's no more elections. So that's probably why they're so upset nowadays, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, whether, obviously there is going to be another presidential election in 2028, but they are, killing their own chances of actually winning that one. I mean, right now, obviously the next focus for both parties is going to be the midterms.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting because even though the Democratic Party seems to be flailing, it's not necessarily a given that they are going to crash and burn in the midterms. They could still pull something out there. But in terms of, getting somebody into the White House in 2028, they are just going about it, just to put it mildly, they're going about it all the wrong way.
Yeah, that's a very interesting distinction. So you've got you've got the three branches, of course. Judiciary is, there's five solid conservatives. There's Chief Justice John Roberts and three more liberal members. That one's pretty much in the bag for the conservative side. There's the presidency, which is secure till at least 2028. And we will come back to who could be a presidential frontrunner for the Democratic Party there. But in terms of the Congress, that's really a coin flip, isn't it? Because you've got the Democrats need to flip a couple of House seats, which is going to be very, very easy to do. And historically, seats tend to switch during a midterm. And then, of course, as you point out, the Senate, currently 47 Democrat to 53 Republican, but this last election cycle, the Senate elections in 2024, the GOP had an inbuilt advantage based on the number of seats that they were defending compared to the Democrats. And that is directly flipped come 2026, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, and that's usually the way it goes. And then this time around, the Republicans are going to be defending more seats than the Democrats. Um, I, my personal view is that the Republicans, I think, stand a fairly good chance of holding on to their Senate majority. Not necessarily um, from a Republican's perspective, anyway. I would use the word optimistic, not necessarily
Sure.
um, that confident that they can hold on to the House. And of course, right now, it's actually the Republicans. The control of the House is theirs to lose. Because they've got until the 2026 midterms to get some stuff done, and if they're just kind of flailing around and not achieving anything, well, then they're going to throw away that majority. So it really is kind of theirs to lose, no matter what the Democrats do. It's just the Republicans. Well, I would say kind of masters of their own destiny in terms of the House.
Or masters of their own destruction, if that's the way they choose to go with it.
Yeah.
So let's talk leadership. Donald Trump is very firmly putting his stamp on the Republican Party. It's a MAGA party now. That's the reality of it. It's just a MAGA. It's a MAGA party. But the Democrats, they're failing to launch anybody into a significant guiding light role within the party. And although there are rumblings that Kamala Harris might rise phoenix-like from the ashes of her November defeat to once again probably fail, but to come back and lead the party again, I think that's an unlikely scenario. But why are we not seeing anybody put their heads above the parapet? Is it too early, perhaps, or is it because there isn't a unifying message?
I think I'm not sure if it's ever too early to start. For these people in Washington and people who have presidential aspirations, I guess it's never too early to start campaigning. Kind of softly, under the radar, if you will. I mean, I think there's no doubt that Gavin Newsom has already begun that process.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the very idea of Kamala Harris making a comeback is ridiculous. And actually, I personally believe that a lot of the power players within the Democratic Party won't actually allow her to do that.
Sure.
Because after 2020, and here's the thing about 2024. Democrats like to say, and the kind of left-leaning pundits on television like to say that, well, Trump's victory, he only won by a whisker. It was a razor-thin margin he won by. And Kamala Harris, they'd love to use the term flawless campaign. She ran a flawless campaign. Yeah. The truth is, behind the scenes, everybody knows that the campaign was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
And in fact, Lindy Lee, who is a former Democratic Party bundler, who was extremely upset the way things turned out, because she was given assurances by Kamala Harris's campaign that it was a slam dunk, that victory was not even up for question, kind of thing. And so she raised a lot of money for the Harris campaign and for the DNC. And of course, it was all for nothing. And now she has since revealed, and it's a bit strange that she didn't know this beforehand, but maybe they just weren't telling her. But now she's revealed that actually Kamala Harris is at Joe Biden's internal campaign polls before he was, I'm not going to say dropped out, before he was pushed out. His internal polling was showing that he had no chance of beating Donald Trump. Yep. And then Kamala Harris's internal campaign polling was also saying the same thing. So they were putting a brave face on it, her and Tim Walz, dancing about the place and acting in a very cringeworthy fashion. But behind the scenes, they knew they weren't going to win.
Yeah, and I my guess is, and I'm sure this is where you're going, is that the donors who were so keen and so happy to spend their hard-earned cash on a political candidate, now that they know they've been lied to by the people in operation, that no polling ever really had these guys ahead, they'll be very, very reluctant to put that same outlay next time around. We're going to be back with Graham J. Noble after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.